Why Iran freed black hostages but kept white ones? Let's see what they're talking about.
Okay, one of the most insane historical facts has got to be when Iran took a bunch of American hostages in 1979, but then decided to free all the black hostages and the women. Why did Iran do this, you ask? Well, first we got to go back a little bit to why Iran took hostages in the first place. And when you understand this, you also understand why Iran and the USA don't really like each other to this day. You see, Iran had a problem. You see, back before the 1950s, Iran's oil industry was basically completely taken over by the United States and Britain. Iran was barely getting a share of their oil. Iran said, knock, 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 hello, United States, Britain, can we have our oil back? United States and Britain said, who said we got your oil? Iran said, boy, we not stupid out here. We see y'all scamming us. United States and Britain said, you got us, and we not finna lie, but we not giving your oil back though, for real. So Iran voted in a new prime minister that took back Iran's oil. The United States said, ooh, we can't have that. Call in the CIA. The CIA pulls up, that boy gone. The United States brings in a new guy, the Shah, and he's very friendly towards the United States. Iran said, the Shah said, look, y'all ain't even give me a chance for real. Yeah, fast forward 20 years later, he gave away all of Iran's oil and had very oppressive policies towards the people. The people of Iran said, time's up. The Shah said, time's up. Boy, you know what I got behind me? Root, root, root. Big dog United States. The Iranian people said, all right, let's see if they get to you in time. The Iranian people rose up and started hunting them down. The Shah said, oh, them folk tripping. He calls the United States. He said, yo, them folk trying to get me. The United States said, chill, we gonna get an airplane. We gonna come.
Boy, you sound like he from Charleston. Hold on. I heard that Chuck come out. Wait a minute.
The Iranian people rose up and started hunting them down. The Shah said, oh, them folk tripping. He calls the United States. He said, yo, them folk trying to get me. The United States said, chill, we gonna get an airplane. We gonna come pick you up. We can't let our assets, our friends,
Florida,
suffer.
Georgia.
The Shah gets on a plane and he dips. He said, I'll see y'all folk in the States. The people of Iran looked at the United States and said, bring back the Shah. The United States said, no, the Shah is sick. We can't give him to you right now. Iran said, we got hospitals here and jails. Bring him over. The United States said, no. And we still gonna take your oil because we're gonna bring in a new guy to still take your oil. This was the last straw for Iran. Iranian college students stormed the United States embassy and take everybody hostage. They said, bring back the Shah. The United States said, release the hostages. What are your demands? Iran said, well, they're pretty reasonable. 1, we want the Shah back. 2, we want you to leave us and our oil alone. The United States said, no. If there's something you gotta know about the United States of America, is it's very hard to negotiate with. The United States wants it all at all times. They said, hostage, y'all gonna have to hold it down. The hostage said, United States said, counteroffer, we keep the Shah, we keep the oil, and you give us the hostages. Iran's new supreme leader, Khomeini, said, look at my face. Do I look like I'm finna play with y'all?
Give us like back business.
Hold on. Are those black people? Now here's where things start to get wicked. Khomeini looked at the black hostages and said, don't the United States be like oppressing y'all and messing with y'all too? Black people said, well, Khomeini said, oh no, y'all are free to go. Plus the women, y'all are free to go. The white hostages said, Jamal, ain't you gonna put in a good word for me? He said, my name's Eric. He said, Andre, we're not here to argue about semantics. This is a serious situation. Go talk to them folk. Put in a good word for me. Black people said, all right, give us your number. I'm going to call you on my iPhone. We're going to put in a good word. White people said, iPhones haven't been invented yet. Black people said, exactly. Call me when they get invented. Oh, them folk dipped. Except a black man named Carl. Now, I don't know if this is him, but this picture goes with what I'm saying. You see, Carl was a Marine, but he was also a radio operator in the Marines. So he was privy to very sensitive information. Carl said, okay, we packing our bags. We going. They said, Carl, you can't come. Carl said, y'all seen my skin color, right? They said, yeah, Carl, but you privy to info. You're going to have to hold it down. Carl said, ain't this about it? So after the black hostages and the women were released, the white hostages and Carl had to wait 2 years until they got released. And in these 2 years, there was a bunch of back and forth between the USA and Iran. All hell was breaking loose. The USA was in a really tough spot. It couldn't give up that sweet, sweet oil. So it didn't want to negotiate with Iran. And it also, the USA also didn't want to look weak in front of the world stage. But on the flip side, the American people were getting very impatient. They were like, excuse me, American people are being held hostage abroad. The government said, but we want that oil. But what the US was actually saying was the excuse that they loved to use before they started using the word terrorism. They used the word communism. They said, look, Iran is probably going to fall to communism. So even though they want us to leave them alone, we can't really leave them alone. The American people said, all right, that makes sense. So the American people started targeting Iranian Americans in the United States, saying, where are the hostages? The Iranian Americans like, I'm from Sacramento, I don't know. So the American people got pissed again, because at this point it had been like a year since the hostages were kept in Iran. So everybody looked back at Jimmy Carter, the president. This man, Jimmy Carter, was stressed because he was very anti-war. So he didn't want to send troops in. So he was forced to try to get hostages out low key. He sent in the CIA, and they were able to get out some hostages who weren't rounded up with the initial bunch inside the embassy. And this is actually what the movie Argo was about. Oh, Bryan Cranston's in this movie? But when Khomeini found out that the CIA was sneaking hostages out, he said, okay, bet. He took all the hostages and moved them to a more secure location, a prison. The American people looked at Jimmy Carter. Look at this man. This man looks stressed on every picture in Google. He said, send in the troops. He had to break his anti-war policy and decided to send in soldiers to take back the hostages by force. But everything was going wrong for the U.S. Army. Their helicopters were just malfunctioning and crashing. They couldn't even get close. The Army then tries another operation, malfunction after malfunction. They just couldn't get it going. The American people looked at Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter finally made a deal with Iran, basically saying, okay, we're going to leave you alone, just release the hostages. Iran didn't get the Shah because the Shah actually passed away. And side note, since Jimmy Carter took so long to get the hostages released, Reagan used that against him to get elected over Jimmy Carter, and Reagan then ruined the world. But that's a story for another day. Side note, to Jimmy Carter's credit, even though he lost the election, he still worked on getting the hostages until his last day in office. In fact, he got the hostages released on his last day in office. And well, even after the hostages were released, Iran and the United States relationship had never been the same since. And in fact, before the hostage crisis and after the hostage crisis, there were many more little incidents that happened between the US and Iran. What's happening today is just another piece in a story that's been ongoing for about 100 years. They just haven't taught you it in your history books. A story whose theme continues to repeat. In fact, since I know some people were worried about Iran attacking the United States today, this story about Iran releasing black hostages will tell you why that will never ever happen. You see, Iran's whole thing is they're trying to show the world that they are being oppressed by the United States. That's why they release black hostages. They're saying, hey, we stand with the oppressed. They looked at the white hostages, however, and said, y'all are the oppressors. Plus, y'all are part of the government. Y'all are in the U.S. embassy. Remember, that's why they also kept Carl. He's in the military. He represents the U.S. government. They basically called him a tap dancer. This is basically, again, the same theme as today, where Iran is saying, we are against the United States government, not the American people. In fact, the Iranian government needs the American people on their side. If the American people can look over and be like, oh man, what's that guy Donald Trump doing to Iran? Then they would change the Trump regime. If Iran attacked the United States, then the American people would be like, go get them, Trump. And Trump would have free reign to do what he wants. That would be the greatest day of Donald Trump's life. Troops sent the next day. Iran understands that. They don't want troops in Iran. So again, attacking the American people directly would be a disaster for them. Now, all that being said, this chapter of the story where Donald Trump's war seems to be coming to a close too, and I do hope that with Donald Trump's chapter closing, the world can attempt to transition into a peaceful arc.
I ain't never heard none of that in my life. Never. But if it's true, then that's crazy. I heard it was really about some extremist Muslims, man. I heard it was still the same thing dealing with that. But I'm pretty sure it got something to do with this oil. You know, Iran got some oil out there. But I don't know. Y'all tell me in the comments what y'all feel about this video. This dude was funny. I never heard of him in my life. I'm going to go ahead and like his video. Go ahead and subscribe to him. Y'all do the same for me. I got more videos like this or whatever y'all want me to watch. I got them coming, man. This is BMane. I'm out.